You are falling asleep. You have no doors to lock. You have no walls to hide behind. You have no soft mattress to protect you. You have absolutely no way to defend yourself for the next 8 hours. You are completely unconscious, but the wild is wide awake, and it is incredibly hungry. You have no idea what is creeping through the darkness, but the darkness absolutely knows you are there. You are, to put it bluntly, a completely free, highly nutritious buffet lying helplessly in the middle of the forest. And yet somehow you wake up. Let's start with the obvious question nobody asks. The sun goes down, the savannah goes completely dark, and you need to sleep. Where exactly do you hide? If you picture a cozy cave with a nice fur blanket, you are wrong. You are thinking about a time much closer to the modern era. The reality for early humans was different. It was terrifying. They did not sleep in beds. They did not sleep in caves. They slept in trees. Let that sink in for a second. Before we had protection, the ancestral night was a nightmare. Ground predators were larger, faster, and infinitely better adapted to the dark than we were. Surviving meant getting off the ground entirely. Early hominins, like Homo habilis, had to climb. They slept up in the branches, exactly like chimpanzees do today. This was not a choice. It was a brutal biological necessity. Imagine doing this. You have to find a sturdy branch. You have to balance your body weight in the pitch dark. You have to maintain muscle tension so that when you inevitably fall into a slumber, you do not plummet 30 feet to the ground. A baby chimpanzee is built for this. A human is absolutely not. We do not have the grasping feet. We do not have the right center of gravity. Yet this is what they did. Every single night, your ancestors dragged their exhausted bodies up a tree just to avoid being eaten. It was uncomfortable. It was dangerous. It was cold. It meant their sleep was constantly interrupted. They were waking up frequently, shifting their weight, listening to the terrifying sounds of massive predators circling the trunk far below. There was no deep rest. There was only paranoid survival. This hostile environment made proper recovery completely impossible. A modern human complaining about a slightly lumpy mattress has no idea what true physical vulnerability actually feels like. We romanticize the ancient world as some pure connection with nature. We put it on posters. We sell retreats based on it. But nature in the dark was entirely lethal. The trees kept early humans alive, but they were a biological prison. You survived the night, but you paid a heavy price in chronic exhaustion. How could a complex brain ever evolve to be brilliant if it never actually got to safely rest? That is the biological obstacle. We were utterly trapped. But here is where it gets interesting. For millions of years, our ancestors were stuck in this profoundly exhausting loop. They could not safely stay on the ground because of apex predators, and they could not properly evolve while clinging to the trees. Something had to break the stalemate. We often think of the discovery of fire as a culinary revolution. We imagine ancient humans finally cooking their meat, getting more calories, and warming their hands during cold nights. All of that is true, but it completely misses the most crucial point. Fire was not just a convenient tool for preparing food or staying warm. It was a literal biological security technology. Before fire, the ground at night belonged entirely to things that wanted to eat you. But when early humans finally figured out how to control a flame, they fundamentally changed the power dynamic of the prehistoric world. A campfire is essentially a wall that breathes light and heat. It is a force that absolutely terrifies every single wild animal with sharp teeth. It created a highly effective, invisible perimeter of safety. Because of this controlled fire, early humans did something incredibly brave and completely unprecedented. They finally dared to leave the branches. They climbed down from the canopy, gathered together around the glowing embers, and actually began to sleep on the ground. This was a monumental shift in human behavior. The solid ground was no longer an absolute death trap. It had become a sanctuary. By constantly maintaining a fire throughout the night, they built a reliable defense system against the predators that had ruthlessly hunted them for thousands of generations. They did not have to balance on a fragile branch anymore. They did not have to constantly grip the bark to keep from falling. They did not have to sleep with one eye open, paralyzed by the sounds of the dark. The fire stood guard for them. It pushed the terrifying darkness back just enough to create a small pocket of absolute safety. It was the very first time in our entire evolutionary history that our ancestors could close their eyes on the forest floor and realistically expect to wake up the next morning. They traded the trees for the earth. The flame became our shield, and that simple circle of light changed the entire trajectory of the human race forever. We finally slept securely on dirt. Let's talk about a biological paradox that makes zero sense until you look at the data. We tend to assume that more sleep equals better brain function. If you want to be smarter, you need more rest. But if you look across the primate family tree, humans are the absolute worst sleepers. A macaque sleeps up to 15 hours a day. A chimpanzee sleeps 10 to 12 hours. Humans, we average about 7. We sleep less than almost any other primate on Earth. You would think this makes us cognitively stunted. Absolutely not. Anthropologist David Samson calls this the sleep intensity hypothesis. It sounds like a productivity buzzword, but it is a literal evolutionary breakthrough. Here is the wild part. Chimpanzees sleep for a very long time, but they sleep incredibly shallow. Why? Because they are sleeping in the canopy. When you are dangling 30 feet in the air, surrounded by a pitch-black jungle, your brain cannot afford to completely shut down. Your muscles have to stay tense. Your ears have to stay alert. You are constantly waking up, micro-adjusting, surviving. There is no deep rest. Humans broke this pattern dramatically. When we finally came down from the branches and slept on solid ground behind a wall of fire, something profound happened to our biology. We stopped sleeping like prey. We stopped keeping one ear open for leopards. For the first time in millions of years, a primate felt entirely safe. And because we felt safe, we could finally let go. Human sleep became significantly shorter, but it became violently deep. We traded quantity for extreme quality. By sleeping on the ground, ancient humans were able to drop into REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep for much longer periods and at a much higher intensity than any other primate in history. We achieved in 7 hours what monkeys could not achieve in 15. Why does this matter? Why is REM so incredibly important? Because of your brain. REM sleep is not just a biological screensaver. It is the exact physiological state where memory consolidation happens. It is where complex problem solving is physically wired into your neural architecture. A massive energy-hungry human brain generates an enormous amount of metabolic waste during the day. Without prolonged, deeply concentrated REM sleep, a brain this large simply cannot clean itself. It would literally collapse under its own cognitive weight. This means that dropping out of the trees was not just a lifestyle change. The deep, intense sleep it allowed was the fundamental prerequisite for human intelligence. Without it, the cognitive leap to Homo sapiens simply does not happen. You do not get language. You do not get art. You do not get civilization. We are the only species smart enough to build the modern world, entirely because we are the only species that figured out how to fall completely, helplessly, deeply asleep. We eventually left the trees. We let the campfires burn out. We built wooden doors. We built thick concrete walls. We systematically eliminated the midnight predators. We engineered the absolute safest sleeping conditions in the history of our entire species. We have climate control. We have memory foam mattresses. We have heavy steel deadbolts. By all biological logic, we should be sleeping deeper than any hominin ever did. But we are absolutely not. The intense, deep sleep that built our brains required our ancestors to feel safe enough to completely let go of the world. Today, our physical bodies are perfectly safe, but our minds are constantly hunted. We simply replaced the circling leopards with an endless, exhausting stream of modern digital anxiety. Our ancestors fought for thousands of generations, literally risking being eaten alive in the unforgiving dark just to secure enough deep rest to evolve human intelligence. They did absolutely everything they could to finally close their eyes safely. And what exactly do we do with this ultimate evolutionary luxury? We lie perfectly safe inside our impenetrable locked rooms, entirely protected from the wild, voluntarily staying awake all night just to stare blankly at cold, glowing little screens.